Talk about Joe Biden and Congress agreeing to send $40 billion of taxpayer money to Ukraine. The cash cow never stops. Meanwhile, there are reports of baby formula shortages in America. The stock market's been taking a beating over the last month. And Joe Biden semi-acknowledges Democrats have all three branches of power.
Do you believe that you and your administration bear some measure of responsibility for the inflation that we're seeing across the country?
First is we're in power. That's the first thing. And you justifiably right, we control all three branches of the government. Well, we don't really.
Is this really Joe Biden's doing? Is he just a puppet? And will anything really change if Republicans get back into national power? We're going to talk about it all in today's live stream.
The taxes continue, the growth of government continues, the deceptions continue on every front. We continue to lose our national sovereignty. The banks continue to run everything. And so we get to choose between two sides of the same issue. I mean, nothing changes, but we're led to believe. There's the illusion.
The show starts now. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Appreciate you guys joining. I'm going to talk about a few things that everybody's talking about today, but I have a little bit of a different take on it, so I appreciate you being here. Apparently, Congress and Joe Biden agreed to send $40 billion to Ukraine. I was reading up on it. Apparently, this is a loss for the Democrats because they wanted COVID stuff in the bill, and the Republicans, this is our compromise, of course, we'll send $40 billion to Ukraine, but we're not going to merge it with a COVID bill, so they're going to do a separate bill. This is like, I'm not saying everybody's controlled op or you can't trust anybody, but at the same time, this is the government, big spending, big taxes, sending trillions all over the place, and that's the compromise you get. You don't get like a fiscally conservative government, that shrinking government. You either get massive bloated government with the stuff that's going on during the Biden administration, or only billions and trillions of dollars get sent instead of even more. So that's what's going on here. With the baby formula shortage, this is my first thought. First of all, I would say if you're a parent, I don't like to give advice or be a hypocrite, but check the ingredients in baby formula, because I personally believe, as somebody that's more health conscious than I used to be, 95% of the stuff in mainstream grocery stores, like, they got pretty weirdo ingredients. So, this is the conversation around baby formula that no one's having. It's like, what's even in it in the first place? All these mainstream generic, formulas, to me, have some interesting ingredients, but I don't want to tell people what to do. Look at that. It is odd, though, that there are shortages, and it's just, I could just say the generic stuff and be like, it's frustrating as a taxpayer to watch the stock market going down, and this is the weird part with a lot of people on the left, not everybody, but they're like, oh, it's just a stock market, who cares? It's like, if you don't have stocks, your parents probably have stocks, a 401k, a lot of workers do. So this is not just the wealthy losing money, this is like average people, probably a lot of people in your family that are watching their net worth plummet. It'll go back up, I believe. I think everything always comes back up. So I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm just saying, as all this is going on, it seems like our Congress is like a foreign agency where they're more concerned about Zelensky's bank account and Ukraine than they are our own economy. And some of the money that we give to Ukraine actually goes to their economy. Like, we're suffering right now. We have homelessness, we have crime, and we have this abundance that we can just keep doling out money to other countries. It's nuts. It's generic what I'm saying, but I wanted to get into a topic that I find more interesting. And I know this might bother a lot of people, but the obvious, narrative with this is like, Biden sucks, right? Biden, is a corny president. He's probably just a puppet. I don't even think he's really pulling a lot of strings. Let's listen to him talk about how they control the government, but they don't control the government. I'm not even sure what he's referring to, but I know what I'm referring to. So let's take a little listen again and then continue.
Do you believe that you and your administration bear some measure of responsibility for the inflation that we're seeing across the country?
First is we're in power. That's the first thing. And you justifiably right, we control all three branches of the government. Well, we don't really.
So he's like, we control all three branches of government, but we don't really. I don't know what he was referring to. Maybe Republicans in the House, blocking certain stuff. But I know what I'm referring to when he doesn't really control it. Big banks, big pharma, big war, big money, big spending. There are people that seem like they're over Biden or Trump. When Obama's in, the spending continues. They bail out the banks. When Trump is in, he spends trillions of dollars during COVID and turns into a vaccine salesman. When Biden's in, they send money to Ukraine. So it does seem like there are people over the president, whether it be the lobbyists, whether, how they're controlling politicians, whether it's through money, financing, fundraising. Some people speculate blackmail. I don't know. I'm not going to act like I do, but it does seem like no matter who gets into office, there are certain people that supersede, people like Biden that are really running the show. And, this is my big question to Republicans, because we've identified at this point, and I have a few great clips I want to play. I can't wait to play them from G. Edward Griffin, exclusive stuff that I just released yesterday that I've never released a video for, and also just a Yuri Bezmenov clip, my favorite one that I like to go over. He says, never bother with leftists, aim higher. You'll hear it if you haven't, and if you have, I'm sure you're excited to hear it too. But, we've identified that the Democrats are not going to do much for us. They're not going to keep spending down. The Democrat audience is easily sidetracked. Like, they're like, we need to do abortions. And it's like, they're not even going to think about sending money to Ukraine. They probably agree with it. We need to fight the Republicans, but they're not thinking higher level anymore. And it wasn't always this way. I'm not someone like, during George Bush, a lot of left-wingers were awake to all this stuff, right? Big, spending. For some reason during Trump, and they just lost their minds. I mean, there's very few leftists that are on the right side now. I mean, it exists, some progressives, etc. But really, I don't know what happened during the Trump administration, but their brains broke and they forgot everything they knew the last 10 years. But now you have the left-wingers are just distracted. Let's fight over Roe versus Wade. Let's ignore the fact that trillions upon trillions of dollars are being printed. Actually, let's demand that it happens. So they're pretty much, like Yuri says, useful idiots at this point. Now we go to the right wing. This is why I always criticize and critique the right more. It's not because I hate the right wing. It's not because I'm trying to be sneaky. It's because I think if there is going to be smaller government reform and we're going to block from this UN, global agenda sort of takeover, great reset, whatever you want to call it, it's going to come from the right wing, the libertarian values, the conservative values. That's going to be who blocks it. And just watching how many Republicans are not even being honest about what really happened in the last 4 years. It's like, yes, Biden's a disaster. He's printing too much money. He's sending it to Ukraine. He's tanking our economy. It almost seems like it's purposeful, unless he has some sort of secret plan. But my thought is like, okay, when we get back into power, is anything going to change, right? Because we had 4 years under Donald Trump, and we could use the pandemic as an excuse, like, well, this just miraculously happened. Yes, something always miraculously happens. Oh, this war in the Middle East miraculously happens during George Bush. Obama miraculously just does healthcare and goes to Libya. Trump, this pandemic where it turns him into a vaccine skeptic to a vaccine salesman, he prints $7 trillion. And this is the part that kind of creeps me out, is I've almost been blacklisted and exiled, and I don't care. It's not like I need any more friends. I got enough. But in general, it's like I'm the unpopular guy because I'm like, yeah, Biden's garbage. I would vote for Trump over Biden if I had to. I did in 2020. However, are we going to just completely ignore the fact that Republicans, when they had power, were printing trillions of dollars? This is the controlled op, I would say options that were given. It's like, either we're going to send $40 billion to Ukraine, or we're going to send $40 billion to Ukraine and a COVID bill. And it's like, yeah, I'm always going to side with the right who's doing less spending, but there isn't really this small government option at all. And I want to go to this G. Edward Griffin because I have a lot to say on it, but me and him talked about in October, and I've never released this clip, where I was asking him what he thinks about Trump, Obama, and the fact that, because by the way, G. Edward Griffin is a famous author. He wrote a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island, a second look at the Federal Reserve. So he's tapping into the banking. I mean, when you look at who runs a casino, right? Oh, I won $20,000 on a slot machine. Great, I won. No, the owner really wins. You know what I'm saying? The house always wins. If you're good at blackjack, you might be able to win a little bit, and then they'll kick you out of the casino if you win too much. The house is what wins. So when it comes to the country, at a certain point, the Federal Reserve kind of finessed their way into taking control of our entire financial system, yet kind of separate from the government. But of course, they work hand in hand with the government. So the point I'm getting to is, if you're not talking about banking, if you're not talking about Federal Reserve, what are you really talking about? Because we just watched 4 years of Trump kind of end in a situation that nobody wanted it to end in. So we have to ask ourselves the question, are they really just putting on a show where they give us an Obama that says change is going to come, a Trump that says I'm going to drain the swamp, and then when you look at Obama's 8 years, change didn't come. I mean, he was just another puppet. Trump certainly didn't drain the swamp, but here's the point. Let's listen to what G. Edward Griffin thinks, because he's almost 90 years old, full of wisdom, and he does more reading and studying than anyone I've ever met. Let's listen.
The taxes continue, the growth of government continues, the deceptions continue on every front. We continue to lose our national sovereignty. The banks continue to run everything. And so we get to choose between two sides of the same issue. I mean, nothing changes, but we're led to believe, there's the illusion. We're led to believe that if we choose one side or the other, somehow we're going to be determining our own political destiny. But it's all pre-planned.
I have a question. Say Obama on the left or Trump on the right. These are two people that kind of pitched change is going to come. I'm new school, and I think that was the appeal to both of them. Well, Obama's not been in politics that long. He's not as corrupt. Trump's not in politics at all, and both the left and the right really gravitated towards those. Do you think that these people are totally powerless and would like to do something but just can't? Or do you think that these are like chosen people that they know that the masses will latch onto, yet they will keep the banking, pharmacy, or the big system doesn't really change?
There's no doubt in my mind that your second option is the correct one.
That they're chosen.
They're chosen and controlled totally, or they would not be chosen. That doesn't mean that at some point in their lives, maybe they were not committed, maybe they were not controllable. But when you look at most of the political figures, especially, and you look at their lives, who they hung out with, things they've done, and you realize that the options for compromise are just incredibly easy. It's easy to blackmail people, in other words, especially if they're playing kind of loose and riding high, and if they have great ambitions. I'm not naming anybody because it applies to probably, maybe I won't say everybody, but most people that we have in high positions in the government. It's not just the president. It's even the Supreme Court. It's the Congress, the senators, all the people we look up to. And I'm just here to say that over the years, I've come to realize that quite often the people who are offered to us as opposition leaders are not opposition leaders. They're there to pretend to be opposition leaders to make sure that a real one doesn't come along.
Right.
Yeah. There's this happens all the time. So until people get to that level of education, we're in a kind of a tough spot.
So that whole podcast is on my Dream Rare podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple, everywhere. G. Edward Griffin is somebody that when I get to talk to, I'm so grateful I got to talk to him. He's an author of a book about the Federal Reserve. He's been sounding the alarm. He filmed the Yuri Bezmenov video and interviewed Yuri Bezmenov. He did a warning about communism in 1969. I'm very grateful, God willing, that I've been able to speak to him at this age. He looks amazing. He sounds amazing. He's like chiller than I am. He's amazing. But also I'm like, man, what a great opportunity that I get to ask this guy questions. And, I think we have some of the best interviews because I really am passionate about it. So I had really great questions and he gives really great answers. But, I asked him, I'm like, do you think that these people just change when they're in office or they're kind of chosen? Because, with Obama, I never really obsessed over him. I kind of thought he was a puppet, but maybe he'd do something. Trump, at first I wasn't feeling, but then I was like, I understand why people like Trump more than Obama because Trump really gave people more stuff to latch onto. Obama was a little phonier, but, acted cool. Trump was saying the news is fake. That's something that's never happened. No, I've never heard a president just say the news is fake, and then it's like, okay, well, the swamp and all this, he wasn't playing polite. So a lot of people are like, yeah, that's my guy. And the reason I talk about stuff like this is because the easy thing to do, and I'm going to play this clip from Yuri Bezmenov, but the easy thing for me to do is I'm not going to take shots at other conservatives, but these accounts, all they do is make fun of leftists, make fun of leftists, make fun of leftists. Yeah, the left sucks. I'm a registered Republican at this point. I'm not voting for the Democrats, but that's kind of the easy thing to do. That's why when people are trying to control America, they look to control the Republican Party because the left wing, no offense, if I was anybody and I wanted to conquer America, the left is conquering itself. They're like self-hating, self-deprecating. Everything they do is the opposite. Big money, big spending, big pharma. I mean, the left are absolutely the useful idiots. So just like, and I'm not saying I'm doing what Yuri's talking about, but it's like, why even, that's why I don't even talk about them that much. I'm not trying to be rude, but I consider that mindset so dumb at this point that I've learned a lot, read a lot, wisdom. Why even play in the kiddie pool with these people that are just self-deprecating, destroying themselves, destroying the country? It's worth pointing out, but it's like we've identified that side of politics is not going to help us, right? It's just not. I mean, anybody that's still left-wing, I'm a progressive, I like Bernie, you're in denial. If the country's going to change for the better, no offense, it's coming through the right. And if you figured that out like Russell Brand or I don't know, you get what I'm saying. It's not Jimmy Dore even. It's like, bro, you're a rarity over there. It's not coming through that side. But that's fine. We appreciate your honesty, but let's be honest. Now, going to the right, you start to see all these people that I considered are controlled. I'm not going to say that they're paid off. I'm not going to question or smear their character. I'm not that type of person. Just studying their movements. Let me take somebody like Ted Cruz, because I consider Ted Cruz to be one of the better Republicans. Sadly, I don't look at him like, oh, you suck. I look at him like you're one of the better ones, and that's sad because I don't even like you that much. But Ted Cruz seems like a nice guy. I'm sure we get along. He, during the pandemic, a year after all the restrictions and stuff in 2021, he was trying to push legislation that said if you are vaccinated, you could take your mask off of an airplane. So this is how the Overton window happens. The Democrats turn this country into like a slave country. You can't go to the beach, you can't go to the gym, you can't go here, you got to wear a mask, you got to get a vaccine, you're kicked out of your job. Left-wingers went full authoritarian medical psychopaths. So what does the right wing do? Are they our saviors? No, 95% of the party just became communist light. They print trillions of dollars. Ted Cruz never really talks about it. Oh, you want to complain about Biden printing money? I agree, Biden sucks. But Ted Cruz is not complaining about the money going to Ukraine. How come? Well, because Ted Cruz supports Ukraine. Ted Cruz is gushing over Zelensky the same way that left-wingers that you claim to hate are. He's the same person when it comes to Ukraine foreign policy. He gets right in line with the Democrats and all these deep state people you think you're fighting. So his foreign policy when it comes to Ukraine is the same. He doesn't complain about $40 billion going to Ukraine. He doesn't complain about the $7, $8, $9 trillion that Republicans spent in 2020 fighting the pandemic. In 2021, Ted Cruz is ready to do vaccination segregation and only give freedom back to vaccinated only. Sorry, Ted Cruz, you suck. And the fact that Ted Cruz doesn't get booed everywhere he goes just shows that Republicans are loving the controlled opposition. You literally get communism light, restrictions light, slavery light, printing light, trillions of dollars light, but they put on this act, oh, I'm going to stop the money. Ted Cruz, you're not going to stop the money. You didn't stop the money when we had power. You're not stopping it now. You won't call out Zelensky, and you certainly said nothing about what happened last year. You were trying to literally take rights away from me, Ted Cruz, and only give it back to people who got vaccinated. Screw you, seriously. And then you go to someone like a Donald Trump, it's like, he printed a lot of money in 2020. He just did. And you can make an excuse for why, but how are we going to stop all of this massive banking scheme, printing, inflation, supply and demand, even the COVID restrictions? A lot of them rooted from that CARES Act where it started giving financial incentive and laying down the guidelines of this new Great Reset. Klaus Schwab's Great Reset, a lot of that was pushed through by Donald Trump. Without Operation Warp Speed, Donald Trump's 2019 executive flu order, without him being the quarterback of the lockdowns and telling people like Georgia and even Sweden saying you should probably follow me and lock down a little more, none of this could have even happened. And I want to point this out because Yuri really mentioned it. This is how they control us. They don't need to do stuff with leftists. I could sit here and have an account and just make fun of dumb leftists, and it's pointless though. It's like I'm taking low-hanging fruit, but when push comes to shove, all of these Republican accounts that just make fun of liberals, they become liberals. They become far leftists. They print trillions. They do socialism. They do, in some cases, communism. They refuse to call out their own party because they're all Team Red. And then they run circles around the vaccine salesman who is now making it like a 5-year campaign to have everybody run around the election without acknowledging the fact that when they were in power, they didn't really do anything for free speech, for, I would say, pushing a lot of these agendas aside. So to me, it just seems like a classic setup. Say nothing, address none of these issues. Nobody's learned a single lesson. Run circles around that. Blame Biden. We'll get into power. It's the same thing. It's been going on for 40 years. And I want to play this clip of Yuri because he explains how. And by the way, if you haven't heard, listen to my full interview with G. Edward Griffin. He explains who Yuri Bezmenov was. He wasn't somebody random. He was in the KGB, but more importantly, his parents was like high-level stuff. Like he was like a rich kid. So him affecting was really a moral thing. He could have been rich and successful and famous over there, but he was seeing how crazy communists were, how they were killing journalists he liked, how they were so unloyal to each other. And he just, I feel like, had a moral obligation to leave and be like, listen, this is what these wicked people are doing. The communists, they're trying to infiltrate freer nations and subvert the people. And the way you do that is not to just bother with leftists, because they're already self-sabotaging. You don't need to convert a leftist into a communist. They're already pushing that agenda without even knowing it. Everything they do is almost wrong. So he said, here's what we were instructed to do. Get into conservative established media, conservative stuff, and try to really subvert them, because if we already have the left wing on our side, and this is what you see on Fox News, this is what you see in the Republican Party, all these people talk a big game, but when push comes to shove, they act like the communists, they act like the bankers, they act like the big pharma, and it really makes people wonder why. But here's that clip. It's really fantastic.
The worst enemies. That's why my KGB instructors specifically made a point, never bother with leftists. Forget about these political prostitutes. Aim higher. This was my instruction. Try to get into large circulation, established conservative media. Rich, filthy rich movie makers, intellectuals, so-called academic circles. Cynical, egocentric people who can look into your eyes with angelic expression and tell you a lie. These are the most recruitable people, people who lack moral principles, who are either too greedy or to suffer from self-importance. They feel that they matter a lot. These are the people who KGB wanted very much to recruit.
But to eliminate the others, to execute the others, don't they serve some purpose? Wouldn't they be the ones they rely on?
They serve purpose only at the stage of destabilization of a nation. For example, your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember this?
So the point was, he was instructed, it's like, don't even bother with left-wingers. Why even bother with them when they're self-sabotaging? They already hate nationalism. They already hate sovereignty. They don't care about the border. They're screeching and screaming about Roe versus Wade. It's like, what, if somebody wanted to subvert America, they don't have to bother with leftists. The point is, they're already sabotaging the country. I mean, every policy they pass, everything they want to do is just the worst version of the Republican Party. But this is why I talk about Republicans so much, because what does it mean to be better than the Democratic Party if the difference between how much better you are is almost non-existent? And people like Ted Cruz and Donald Trump does a better job. Ted Cruz is kind of boring, but they're these people that are like trying to let you, oh no, we're going to really be super different. But in 4 years, he proved that he really wasn't. He printed $7, $8, $9 trillion. So this is the point I'm getting to. I'm against Joe Biden's administration and what he's doing with the money printing and all this stuff, taking away my freedom, etc. I don't agree with it. I don't like Joe Biden. I'd never vote for him. But my point is this. I'm willing to call out Joe Biden, his hypocrisy, his money printing, his inflation scams. But I'm also willing to call out the Republican Party's money printing and inflation scams, which they scammed us all 2020. But here's the difference. I'm an anomaly in the Republican Party because everybody's playing this team sport. Let's just ignore what we did in 2020. Let's ignore the vaccine salesmen, constantly just shilling for Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna, playing in with big reset, big great reset, big banks, big pharma. He's in on all of it. When push came to shove, Donald Trump was all talk, no action. He's proved to people that he's not who we thought he was. But 90-something% of people, although people are waking up, to give MAGA credit and conservatives credit, a lot of people are realizing this. A lot of people are waking up, but still a lot of people don't want to. And they get like unhinged emotional when you talk about it. So that's just the point I'm trying to get to. It's like you've already seen that this person is not going to go the distance, doesn't want to, and can sell you on a lie as if he's selling you a new Lamborghini. But that's what people want. That's textbook definition of controlled opposition. And I'm not saying he's getting paid off money. I don't know. I'm not trying to judge where he comes from or what he's doing. But when it comes to stopping inflation, money printing, and all of this travesties, that didn't happen during 2020, but no Republicans talk about it. And I'm starting to realize this game they play because I'm following a lot of these Republicans like Ted Cruz. I don't hate Ted Cruz. I'm not like emotionally against him. I actually like a lot of things he says. I think he's one of, sadly, the better people in the Senate, and he, asks good questions. But to me, he's putting on a show, because he's all Mr. Freedom, but in 2021, he was willing to do mask segregation for vaccinated people. Scumbag. 2022, he's against the money printing. He's crying about money printing on Twitter today, but he refuses to call out the $40 billion to Ukraine. Why? Because he probably supports it because he likes Zelensky. He has the same foreign policy as Hillary Clinton and George Soros when it comes to Ukraine. So how is Ted Cruz going to help us if he's against money printing, but he's not really? It's only when he doesn't get to do it. He's a phony. But this is Trump as well. He's just a better phony. He's going to complain about Biden, get into power, and do the same things that he did the last 4 years. But people don't realize it. So it's such an effective strategy. And people have known this. G. Edward Griffin, once again, go check that out at Dream Rare Podcast. This guy's read hundreds of books. I mean, he's 90 years old. He's got the wisdom from the 50s, 60s. This guy's brilliant. And he's explaining, he's read Lenin. He's read everything. But he's like, this is the most effective strategy. It's not to be paranoid and just call everyone controlled opposition all the time and smear their character. But it's like, if you are a bank or a lobbyist, what do? You control both sides, right? Big Pharma, if you look at their, money paycheck, they lobbied Joe Biden. They lobbied Donald Trump. They lobbied every Republican and Democrat involved in that Georgia, House or Senate race, whatever that was. Remember Ossoff versus Warnock, and you had the Republican lady. Look at the OpenSecrets.org does all lobbying, because when you run for office, it's not like they're not doing investigation like Project Veritas. You have to make this stuff public in order to run. There are certain transparency laws. So you see that Big Pharma swoops in and says, you guys fight over Warnock and, whatever that lady's name was. She looked like Ann Coulter. It's like, fight over them, but we're going to get all of them, right? We're going to pay all four of those people. So whether it's that guy, the black guy, the white guy, the red guy, the blue guy, politically, yeah, we got them. The woman, man, it doesn't matter. They lobbied them. And it's the same thing with the banks. It's like, there's certain things that happen, whether George Bush, Obama, Trump, or Biden, and it's not like I'm making this theory up and not giving Trump a chance, like, oh, anomaly is so irrational. He was in office and he printed more money than Barack Obama did. And nobody wants to talk about it besides me. And when I talk about it, people will smear my character and lie about me because they're so emotionally invested in Donald Trump being Batman. It's like, how in the world are we going to win when we're not? We're not. People like Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, they're just enough to get you going to a rally, but not enough to actually stop any of these main pillars. And when it comes to the Great Reset and all this stuff that's happening, I think we're winning ideologically because people are waking up. But at the same time, there are multiple ways to stop them in their tracks. One would have been, not closing down. Okay. One would have been not passing the executive order in 2019 for the vaccine industry, which Trump did. One would have been not doing Operation Warp Speed. And even now, I would say a low-hanging fruit would be do at least what DeSantis or Don Jr. does and stop shilling so hard for Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer and Moderna. Let's be honest. I don't know if I could say this here, but to be quite frank, I don't care. I know dozens of people who got vaccinated. I don't know a single person who thinks this is some sort of landmark achievement. Everybody feels a little bit duped or scammed to some extent because the promising from Rachel Maddow and the CDC director and even Donald Trump, it's the greatest, everybody had these massive expectations. We're going to defeat COVID. It's going to go away. We're going to get the vaccine and you're going to leave us alone. And none of that happened. I'm sorry. I would say Operation Warp Speed's a failure. Everybody knows that. But, Trump has pride and ego, and he's involved with big pharma, big banks, big government, big spending, big money. He's in on it all. So he has chosen his side. He's not with we the people. He doesn't want to speak out against it. He is now a PR team for Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, big banks, and big pharma. He's chosen that path. I didn't choose it for him. I'm not giving him credit for the vaccines. He wants credit for the vaccines. He begs for it every time he's on television. So give him the credit that he wants. He wants the credit, not Fauci, not the FDA. Trump wants to let you know that he's Mr. Rush fundy guy, giving out socialist money, funny money to all these big pharma companies. So, he's telling you, I'm not on your side. I don't care about you. I will side with other people. I'm going to brag about it. I'm going to defend them. I'm going to try to controlled, Republicans into thinking something that's not cool is cool. And it's semi-working. I would say it's not really working to some extent, but that's the game we're playing. So it's easy to just say Biden is garbage. Yeah, he's garbage. It's easy to say that his administration is probably the most psychotic administration I've ever seen. I mean, some of these people like Rochelle Walensky, et cetera, God bless her soul, and the new disinformation lady, it just looks unhinged. I mean, I feel bad where it's like, this does not look like a stable person. And, I pray for their souls, but, this is who's running. You got these people running the show. It's a nightmare. His administration is absolutely a nightmare. But I guess what's more interesting and fascinating from a game theory / just obvious American perspective is the opposition party that's pretending to fight the Biden administration is really not. So, it would be like if I'm a New York Knicks fan and they're playing the Nets and everyone says, Anomaly, you like the Knicks like me, right? Of course I like the Knicks, but I don't think they're really on our side. I'm starting to think it's a setup where they're going to purposely lose or cave. So I start saying, and people are like, oh, are you the Net? You like the Net? I don't like the Nets, but I'm concerned with the fact that my own team doesn't actually look like it's trying to put up a fight. And I think at this point, it's not even like debatable. I mean, everything's debatable, so feel free to disagree, but they've made it so wildly clear that they're not on our side. They've made it so wildly clear that the difference of what they're going to do to Democrats is worth, I would say, voting for. It's definitely an improvement of some extent, but they're going to gatekeep their power as long as they possibly can. I'm even seeing it with the Dr. Oz endorsement, right? Because if you guys know, this is not my doing. MAGA rejects Dr. Oz mostly. We'll see how people vote because people like Trump, but most MAGA hardcore Trump followers, people that are really pro-Trump, nobody really seems to like Dr. Oz when it comes to like the big influencers I follow because he's not authentic. I saw a video of him with Richard Grenell. I mean, God bless both those guys, but nothing about that video came across authentic. And we're not able, you can't just walk all over us. Like, this is how a lot of these people in politics think. And I'll just let you know, because I could see it. They think they deserve your vote. They know that the Democratic Party's worse. And a lot of these people get smug because they just feel like they're Republican elites. As somebody that has pretty big influence, you would be shocked at how people come at me like, don't say that, Anomaly. Like it's like they think they control everything. It's like, oh, no. This is what we're doing. We're the chosen Republicans, and you just, listen to us. Even if we're wrong and we're lying and we're not doing anything, we're the elite Republicans, and you got to fall in line. And I'm like, I'm not that type of person. I don't want to be in office. I don't need donor money. I'm not out here trying to make friends. I'm a truth teller. I'm an honest person. I'm an American citizen, and I'm never going to change. But people think, oh, well, just because it's not Biden that we got all this stuff on our side. And it's like, there's a lot of great people around Trump. There's a lot of phonies around Trump. And a lot of people are gatekeeping their power, and they're not interested in stopping the money printing. They're not interested in stopping Big Pharma in its tracks and stopping them from taking over, your sovereignty. They're not interested in stopping the Great Reset. They're interested in pretending like they are, getting a Fox News or Newsmax little conference where they say something generic that anybody could say. You could say 90% of my audience could probably do a better job than them in a more authentic manner, but that's what they're concerned about, gatekeeping their own power within the Republican Party structure. And a lot of these people, unfortunately, have completely lost sight with what we're actually trying to do. I saw this in 2019 when I was really concerned with free speech because I saw some of these bills that not just Democrats, but Republicans were agreeing with that, in my opinion, were an infringement on the First Amendment. And when I talked to people that were higher up than me, I would say in the crowd, get invited to Mar-a-Lago, et cetera, they weren't concerned at all. Like it was more like, we know you're right. We have no logical counter to why you're wrong, constitutionally, but this is not good for my brand to go against Trump, or this is not good for my brand to call out speech laws for this. So I'm, just that's like the message people were giving me. And that's when I really became a different person. I'm not like I totally changed, but I'm like, wow. Because 2016 to 2018, watching the Trump movement grow, I was like, wow, this is the movement of truth. This is the movement of honesty. And I still think it's the better side of politics, no question. But I'm like, I started getting higher up, getting invited places, etc. People are super nice to me. There's a lot of great people in there. But, I would say I'm a rare breed. I'm not trying to brag, but it's like, I don't need any more I don't care what people think of me. My power doesn't come from my status or how fake I am. My power comes from how real I am. The fact that I can sit here for 3 hours and tell people and be transparent exactly what I think. No bullshit, no speeches, no prepared, scripts that somebody else wrote. And a lot of people's power doesn't come from that. It's like they're just climbing ladders and gatekeeping. And that's happening in the Republican Party too. So you'd be shocked how many people around Trump, put on a little show on Fox News and Newsmax. But really, when you bring up like, hey, next time we get into power, are we going to print $9 trillion? Because I think that's pretty crazy. Like, I mean, not only is that socialism, but it's actually like bigger than that. Not only is inflation going to rise, not only are prices going to go up, but it's like you're laying out all of this groundwork. For instance, they're going to use environmentalism, which is real, to control everybody. They already have all this climate change stuff. I'm not saying the climate doesn't change. They just like with COVID, they use it as an excuse and they build all this infrastructure, and then it's like impossible to get rid of all the infrastructure they built. So this is the game the Republican Party plays. They build all the infrastructure for the Democratic Party. They sign all the bills, the omnibus bills, the COVID bills. They create this new world that people like Klaus Schwab want to create. And then people like Ted Cruz and Trump throw up their hands when they don't get the result they want to say, oh, I didn't do it. I don't agree with mandates. It's like, yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's why you're a better option. But you built the infrastructure for the other side. If you want to stop these people in their tracks, when you get into power, you have to stop growing government. I wish it were easy. It's not easy, but they don't even try. They're professional actors. They go and have meetings with banks. In Trump's case, he's taken money from banks. He's taken money from pharma. This is all public information. I'm not like diving into his taxes. I don't care about his personal stuff. God bless Donald Trump. He had to put up with so much bullshit. I would never want to do that. And I've always appreciated him and defended him for all the nonsense he's had to go through. But when it comes to taking money from these people, he does that. And then he turns into a salesman. So it's like this thing where it's like he goes to the MAGA people, he goes to the banks, he does a deal, and he, is like a big clown like Ronald McDonald to sell you on some idea that he just closed. It's business, right? He's a businessman. He's a great businessman. But at the end of the day, I think certain people on the right wing, they're not interested in just business deals. Yeah, it's great to have a good economy. It's great to have, flourishing businesses. But if you're doing business with, people that hate us, and you're doing business with people that want to close our businesses, and you're doing businesses with people who want to take away our rights, then that business is no longer moral and we don't support it. We're not like deranged, immoral capitalists who says do anything for $1. That's not how I am. It's like, actually, I think we should have moral capitalism, not communism. But if our country has a soul and our laws are fair, people can't keep exploiting each other for $1. That's crazy. And that's what happened during the pandemic. I mean, they exploited the crap out of us. Big pharma exploited us. Big government exploited us. Politicians exploited us. Testing, companies made an absolute fortune. Everybody exploited us. And then they say it's a conspiracy theory to say so. But the point I want to get across, and then I'm going to read a few comments, is, yes, the Democratic Party is the worst of the two parties. Yes, they are not at all on your side. Yes, they have no interest in keeping sovereignty. They don't like national borders. But here's the crazy part, and I want to bring up the UFC. This is kind of a tangent, but there's a reason I'm going here. I like the UFC. Dana White, in my opinion, is the greatest, CEO of sports. He's very based and doesn't care about political correctness. But even the UFC, as a UFC fan, they're banning all flags. So now Conor McGregor was iconic. He'd come out to the Ireland flag. It's epic. Conor's one of the coolest fighters ever. Now he can't come out to the Irish flag. It's banned in the UFC. This is the right-wing based organization that doesn't care about politics. Now you can't come out if you're Russian. You can't even come out if you're Ukrainian. If you're American, like Colby Covington, they're banning the flag. So this is like the situation that we have to deal with. The left makes up all these rules and the right always caves. And I understand it's difficult because Dana White is doing business in other countries, and it's not just the Russian flag. It's like the Taiwanese flag or the Hong Kong, it's Palestine. Things like this are bothering certain people in certain countries, and he's probably trying to finesse a business deal. I like Dana White. I actually really like him. He's one of my favorite people in sports right now. But this just shows how it's like you're banishing national flags at an event that doesn't care about political correctness. At what point are we playing right into the hands of people who don't want nations? I'm not Palestinian, Israeli, Russian, or Ukrainian, but I think you have the right to fly your flag if that's your flag. I actually like that. I like seeing people that put their nation on. I like the fact that people believe in their country. I don't want to live in a world where there are no country states and, somebody like Bill Gates or Klaus Schwab is overseeing all of us. And I feel like, although I'm not trying to blame Dana White because I like him, this is the game that our allies play. The left somehow uses media culture to move the Overton window so far towards what they want. And then the best that we can do is like $40 billion to Ukraine, but no COVID spending. That's not a deal. I mean, this it's not a good deal. Oh, we'll do $6 trillion in spending instead of $7 trillion. We'll do the omnibus bill, but we'll take out a few things and leave in like hundreds of pages of just complete bullcrap. It's like, but the point I'm trying to get to is not even to blame the Republican politicians, most of who are phony. It's us. It's on us. The left, unfortunately, doesn't get this stuff. Roe versus Wade, George Floyd, they're willing to freak out about everything except for the fact that they're getting robbed by all of these industries. The left, I'm not trying to be mean, but to me, they're basically useless at this point. And the progressives that are like on our side, that watch my channel, you're in denial if you don't realize that the right wing is kind of like, pushing this forward. But on the same token, there's a lot of people on the right who are, still playing this little game. And, I go so hard at it because the game is going to be played until people realize that it is being played. And it's like, I see everybody running around Trump about the election. To me, this almost seems like a setup. I'm not saying I think the election was fair, and I don't think everything is perfect. Like, I think we should have more fair elections, ID voting. I have a lot of ideas on how to make the election more fair. I don't support mass mail-in ballots. I think it's insane on a broad scale. However, none of this is addressing the fact that Trump is a vaccine salesman. None of this is addressing the fact that Trump is like, a money printing communist when push comes to shove. None of this is addressing the fact that he doesn't even care that he did it, and no one cares. People like Tim Scott, they get on stage and say, oh, the CARES Act was so bipartisan, and all the Republicans clap. And I'm like, the CARES Act was one of the most communist, socialist scam bills in modern history, and Republicans are clapping for this stuff. None of this addresses this, so I feel like it's almost a scheme to get people to run circles around the great vaccine salesman for 4 or 5 years and never address these core issues. Like, why is Ted Cruz on our side 1 week and then he's literally, against us the next week? Why? There is no push for this in the Republican Party because it's all like this little circus of like, let's just make fun of the left, let's just blame the left, and let's not address anything that we've done because we're going to do it again, but let's not address it. So that, to me, that's a more fascinating concept of what's going on. And just like with the money to Ukraine, the left is totally controlled at this point. Roe versus Wade, George Floyd, not only do they usually have pretty bad opinions about the new thing that everybody's fighting for, they're almost always wrong about it, but they get so sidetracked, like, so controlled to the point where like they're just pushing for a worse version of America. It's not even worth, trying to convince somebody you're right is great, but there's nothing I can really say to them because their worldview is so skewed at this point. It's like, you're going to need help from God, not me. But then you go to the right, there's so much potential, so many people paying attention, so many people awake, so many people so close, but, and we're getting closer and closer. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but it's never going to fully change until people start addressing their favorite people in the Republican Party and admitting that they really aren't who they said they were going to be. It's like this weird show, in my opinion. Like if Candace Owens or myself or anybody of this stature went on stage and started defending Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer and Moderna and saying it's the greatest, they'd get booed immediately. The only one who could pull off this complete inversion of reality is Donald Trump, and he's the front runner for the next election. So I just find it fascinating. I'm like, it's like there's no way that this is going to work out until people come to the point where they're able to start questioning. And it's starting to happen. I think the Dr. Oz endorsement was a big wake-up call for a lot of people. That seemed to really, trigger MAGA and like stand back a little bit. So I absolutely think there is progress being made. I'm not just complaining about it. But that's the solution. Big banks, big pharma, big spending. They control both parties. They control the Obama administration. They control the Bush administration. Clearly, they control the Trump administration. He was not able to do anything and doesn't even seem like he cares at all. And they control the Biden administration. And why are people so desperate for the guy that clearly did not do anything about that next time? At least at bare minimum, if you're going to want him over Biden, I get it, but you're not going to say anything about it? People are going to get upset when I say something like I'm the bad guy. It's like you're begging to get fooled again. And that's just red-blue politics. It's like a sports team. It's like it's like a little group gathering. It's like a high school lunch table that you're gatekeeping. And I see straight up, in the party. First of all, there's a lot of great people, a lot of great conservatives, a lot of great like influencers. I like a lot of people. I'm naturally a get along type of guy. I'm not a phony, but I'm a viber. You know what I'm saying? If you don't bother me, I'm not bothering you. I'm someone who wants to get along with everybody, but my analysis of being pretty, I'm not going to even say I'm high up. I have a lot of respect in a lot of people's eyes, but I don't go out and seek it and try to grab power. I just do my thing, and my power comes from the respect people give me because of the work I do. I'm not ladder climbing. I'm executing good quality stuff, and that's where I get any sort of influence from. But a lot of people in the Republican Party are not, it's not like they're not focused like you think they are. Most people are good, and most of the base is like, you think these people really care, but when you really get down to it, you're like, they care about status, money, like, taking a selfie at a Republican event is fun. It's nice. You get a lot of likes. People like you. I get it. I took a selfie at the White House. It was one of the coolest moments of my life. I'm not above it. It's like, I'm at the White House. That's a huge honor. Who am I to be at the White House? I feel like that's one of the greatest honors of my life, but it's not like that's going to prevent me from being honest, because I feel like I got to the White House by being true to myself, and I don't want to sacrifice that. But a lot of people, it's like once they get that status, they no longer care about free speech. They no longer care about conservative spending. It's more just like a, plug and go. Like you go on Fox and you say that line that everyone says, and it becomes like a right-wing NPC sort of thing where everybody just says the same things. They make fun of leftists, but they're not analyzing where their own party is letting them down. And as somebody that's super competitive, I'm super into sports, I'm super into self-accountability. I talk about this the most, not because I hate the right or I'm trying to stop them. I'm trying to build it and improve it because I consider us the opposition party. We are the opposition to the wickedness. But if the opposition to the wickedness is not really doing anything, then we are controlled opposition by design as a movement. And I'm not saying people are, but that's what we're going to end up being if people are afraid to call out their own side, scrutinize certain things, and challenge people, right? Challenge Donald Trump, challenge Ted Cruz. I swear, if I see Ted Cruz at an event, I'm going to boo him. I'm going to boo him loudly and let him, I want an answer. I'll be nice, sort of, but I'll be like, why did you try to pass legislation that only gave rights to fully vaccinated people? Like, that was Ted Cruz less than a year ago, trying to take away my rights and give special rights to only vaccinated people. This guy's supposed to be on my side? Well, my side must suck, because if that was a restaurant in my neighborhood, I would probably curse them out. You think I'm a slave, a lab rat, an animal? You're not going to allow me in this building without a freaking... Ted Cruz is like, bro, that's corny. And then he's like, oh, we're spending too much. I'm like, you say that as if it's like a punchline to get conservatives riled up. But when we spend money and you spend money and your buddy Zelensky gets money, all of a sudden you don't care about money spending. So do you really care about money spending, or is it just like a game? It's a game to a lot of these Republicans. They're just playing you. It's like, let me just point to the left. That's all they can do. Oh, Dan Crenshaw, I just point to the left. Oh, just point. It's like, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, the left has gone insane. You're a better option, but that's like, it's like all they got. And then you start getting down to like their policies and ideas, and you're like, these suck. And the more you start getting into them, they get mad at you, and they're like, man, what are you, a leftist? You're like, no, I'm actually economically further right than you are. I'm closer to like a Ron Paul than I am a you, because I mean, Ron Paul maybe wasn't the strongest leader. He's a tiny guy, but he's got a soul, as big as an elephant. But Ron Paul was trying to explain this stuff, and he got blacklisted from the Republican Party. Why? Because they're not really conservative. You don't have to like Ron Paul, but economically, he was getting to the core of it. Like, you want to talk about spending? Let's talk about the Federal Reserve. Get him off the stage. So it's like, but that's like the root of the tree. If you want to uproot a tree, you can't do it by slashing at the branches. That's my best metaphor, simile that I could do, is like the Republican Party just slashes at the leaves and then they just grow back bigger. It's like, you can't uproot a tree by hitting the leaves. That's what Trump does. That's what Bush did. That's what Ted Cruz does. They're just, Crenshaw, nice guys, I'm sure, but they're just hitting the leaves. It's like someone like, Ron Paul's like, hey, what if we got at the roots and then we moved the tree? And they're like, whoa, calm down. You're going too far. It's like, that's the only way to actually fix it, though, unfortunately. And I'm not even complaining, because I think we live a good life in America. Even at our worst, we're still better than every other country and more prosperous. So I'm grateful. I'm not even one of these people that's like, I spend my whole days crying about this stuff. You feel my energy now. I feel still grateful. My stocks are crashing. Everything's crashing. I'm losing so much money, but whatever, it'll go back up. I hope so. But if not, I have to work even harder. I'm trying to not be poor again. I just got not poor like a year ago. But in general, it's like it's not like I feel like a victim here. It is what it is. I'm going to keep working. Our country's going to keep working. And I think America can turn it around even if we don't fix all the spending. However, if we're really going to have this political movement like, MAGA has become, we're going to fix it, we're going to make it better. If you talk about this stuff, sure. But if you're just hallucinating Nasara, Gassara, Donald Trump's in an underground base, like overturning the economy, like he's actually not. Nasara, Gassara, no offense, is the biggest cope in the world to not facing reality and just hallucinating that there's some sort of secret way that the whole world economy is being saved by Donald Trump. It's the fakest, dumbest conspiracy theory on the planet. And I'm not knocking conspiracy theories because a lot of them are true, but it's like the amount of people that just can't cope with reality, the fact that Donald Trump's selling vaccines and doing the bankers' bidding, it's like, what if we just said that there was some sort of secret reset, that only I could see on Facebook? And it's like, no. But I mean, you could think what you want. I don't care. It's not going to bother me, but it's like I'm watching, I'm like, man, we got to face this stuff. And the sooner we face it, the quicker it'll change. And there is absolutely a lot of progress being made. Life is good. America's a great place to be. But if we're going to pretend to really drain the swamp, I mean, we got to go deeper than just the puppet guy who, or the guy that's not a puppet who just kind of does business with them. It's just what I think. Zach said, great one. Appreciate you guys. I'm going to hang out for 20, 30 minutes. And to my Facebook followers, I apologize. I've been slightly under the weather, but, I'm defeating it with garlic. I took some ginger root, just drinking ramen, soup. I mean, I'm probably going to get fat because I've been just sucking down soup all day I feel great. I just beat the sickness in almost one day. I feel pretty great right now, but I will do that Facebook live stream for anybody here. I had a private live stream scheduled for yesterday, but I was really under the weather. My throat was crazy. Today, my throat is almost fully healed. God is great. Thank you for ginger root, God. Thank you for the garlic. I'm not a doctor. Listen to your doctor, but that's just, I might go in a sauna, get it going, but I will do that live stream later today, probably at 5 p.m. my time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Sorry about the delay, guys, but to all my Facebook subscribers, we're going to be giving away free hats. I'm going to be giving away free hats, free shirts. I got it. I want you to have it. So thank you to everybody supporting on Facebook and being patient. For Patreon, I might do something similar too. I apologize because I actually run all this stuff myself. I had a little help, just to let you guys, I'm transparent. I had a little help for a month and a half, and it didn't work out. It's all good, but it's really just me here, and I do everything. I film, I edit, I come up with my intros, I make the videos. So I'm just in a bunch of different directions, and I always try to stay somewhat clear-minded so I could keep moving forward. But I have a lot of stuff. I got to finish my book, like Patreon. So I appreciate you guys being patient with me because I don't have a whole team to do all this. And I always try to, and maybe this is a fault, but I always try to give the public my best stuff, where it's like I don't want to hide all my best stuff behind the paywall. I have some cool stuff there, some unique stuff, but if it's good, I want everybody to see it. Really, that's what's important. What are my thoughts on Marjorie Taylor Green, said Lori. I think in Washington, she seems like one of the less controllable people. I think that's pretty clear. So as far as the Washington, did I say Hollywood? I meant Washington if I did, but the Washington crowd, I think it's clear that Marjorie's one of the least controllable people. Will she always do what you want? Probably not. Will she cave in certain things? I've already seen her cave, but it's a creepy, gross game that they're playing there, and I think she's one of the better ones for sure. So I root for her. I think in Washington, she's definitely not the most controlled person, and she seems like she has a soul, and she definitely seems like she's not controlled by Big Pharma. She's very outspoken about it, and I appreciate that. You got to take your wins when you can. Someone said, what's your thoughts about the 2000 Mules documentary? Good question. I haven't watched it yet. I do want to watch it. I asked people on my Twitter what they thought of it, and it was a mixed review. A lot of people loved it, said it was like a must-see. A lot of people said it was overrated. I'll have to see it for myself. I will try to watch it at a certain point. But this is just my one thought. I'm not one of these people that's acting like the election is perfect. I don't think it is. I think when you have mass mail-in ballots, it's just not a good system. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not good. I don't agree with that. I don't have to. No ID, I think, is a garbage system too. I just think it's not, the room for error is enormous, and I'm extremely disappointed with everything that happened last election. Even when they were like, oh, there's a water leak. I mean, this is just basic common sense. Oh, there's a leak at the stadium, let's shut it down. That's sketchy. If Republicans did that, it's sketchy. You know, it's weird. It doesn't instill trust in anybody with a brain. So, you know, I feel people on the election, but I can't help personally but feeling like the MAGA crowd has been, I'm not going to say brainwashed, but basically they want people to just run in circles around the election. So from November to January, people did that. And I'm not saying it wasn't a good idea, but like January 6th ended up being a setup. So everybody that ran around it for 3 months, they got set up. Then everybody ran around it and said, Mike Lindell said in August, I'm going to change everything. He didn't really change anything. Now you have this. I'm not saying it's not worth a watch and it's not worth some of people's activism, but I think it's almost like, at this point, a trick to get Republicans to not realize that Trump is a vaccine salesman. Trump's working for Big Pharma. Trump worked for the big banks. Trump printed the money. Trump was a socialist. That's just reality. He printed more money than Obama did and bragged about it. So it's like that. To me, the solution isn't simply get him back into office. I want the elections to be more fair. I think Republicans are going to win big in November, and I hope they do. But I can't help but thinking the fact that people care about this more than anything else is a trap. Like, they're not talking about the Federal Reserve. They're talking about getting the guy who clearly caved on like most major issues back into office. You know, so I think it's worth people's time to think about this topic and care about it. But I can't help but feel like the fact that a lot of people who follow these people only care about that, and everything else I just said goes over their head and they don't want to hear about. I can't help but feel like that's some sort of a trap, just like January 6th seemed like a trap to me. And that doesn't mean I think the elections have nothing to change. It's just I don't trust Trump and how he's doing it anymore. If I'm going to talk about the election or I'm going to talk about anything, I'm going to talk about it on my own terms, in my own way, what I think. I'm not just following his coattails and doing these topics when I'm told to, because I feel like it seems like people just keep getting set up. Every time they do it, deleted, banned, FBI's at the event. Like, it just seems like bad news. But I got to watch the full documentary because I think it's worth a consideration. But I don't know. I wish people cared about other topics besides just that. But that's just my opinion. I don't really hold my opinion that highly with certain things. This is not something I think is that devastating. As long as people can multitask, I think it's multitasking is important. Just caring about that is just like Roe versus Wade. I mean, that's an important issue, but if you only care about Roe versus Wade for 5 months and then you care about Ukraine, to me, something just seems off. That's all I'm going to say. My instinct is telling me something seems off. But that's just, my intuition. Let's see. Someone said, I need less government, not more. Well, that is the goal, Mr. Boston. The problem is both parties keep expanding it, unfortunately. And they'll keep doing that until people just kind of catch on to it. That's the interesting thing about Trump. I really think that in many ways he was the best president of our time. He was definitely the funniest. He was definitely the rawest. So I'm in total agreement that he was the most entertaining and potentially the best shot we've ever had. And maybe it's still the best shot we've ever had. I'm willing to admit that. However, I just find it fascinating that Trump is so popular and so loved that he can literally do the opposite of what his base wants, and he's the only person that could get away with it. It's just fascinating how, he really has the Republicans by the balls right now. And I feel like with him and the GOP, there was one GOP member, not Trump, but one of the other ones, who said, I'm paraphrasing, but we don't care what the base thinks about Ukraine. We're doing it anyway. This is how a lot of these Republicans think. They don't really care. I mean, they put on a show like they care more than Democrats, because they probably do. But it's like, if we want to do this, we're doing it. If we're doing it for the banks, or we're doing it for pharma, or we're doing, little great reset moves and pretending like we're fighting them, they're going to do it either way. And I think that's kind of how Trump feels. I think he feels like he has immunity. I'll back Johnson & Johnson, I'll back Pfizer, I'll back Moderna, I'll promote, all this stuff, even though my base hates it, because what other option do they have? What are they going to vote for? Romney? What are they going to vote for Biden? So I think the GOP has gotten a little too comfortable with your support because they know that you'll vote for them more than the Democrats. So I think, it's never good to be too comfortable like that. It's like a sports team that wins too much and gets lazy. You don't want to get lazy in this game. So I want to see the base do what, I love the Dr. Oz stuff. Dr. Oz seems like a nice guy, but I like the fact that MAGA is really upset about that. I like seeing MAGA challenge Trump. It's like my favorite thing. It's not because I'm trying to screw up Trump, but MAGA is the heart and soul of the movement. With no MAGA, there is no Trump. He created it and definitely, fueled the populist Tea Party movement, the truther movement. All of these kind of merged with MAGA, and Trump became the leader of it. But right now, it seems like he's not on the same page as most of his movement, and I love seeing the movement start to really, push back a little peacefully, obviously, just like questions. And, I think the GOP is a little too comfortable, all of them, including the top dogs. But let's see. What's the lady's name going against Dr. Oz? Her name is Kathy Barnett. I'm supposed to have a debate about it because I had somebody reach out. She was, I believe, on television. I think she works for the Trump administration or did. She reached out and she wants to make the pitch to you guys that Dr. Oz is the truth and, my video's wrong and that Johnson & Johnson's cool. So I want her to come on because it's not like she just has to convince me. I'm not the one creating these ideas. We all naturally feel the same way because it's like, Dr. Oz has videos where he's talking about red flag laws. So, it's like we've had this happen to us so many times. People are rightfully skeptical if he's going to turn into another Mitt Romney. So, I'm willing to bring her on and let her try to sell you or me because I don't believe it either. So I think it'll be a great little conversation / debate. But when I made that video and it went pretty viral, most people agree with me, but some people get pretty upset. And, or she was cool about it. But I'm just saying, like, in the comments, like, there's some people that are just like, don't question. And it's like, dude, it's okay. They're politicians. It's not, you get what I'm saying? It's not like they didn't sign up for this. We're not mean to Trump in the way that the media is. The media is vicious. If you do what the mainstream media does to Trump, shame on you. But if you're doing what MAGA and we do to Trump, it's not mean. We're simply asking the leader of this movement to address these, what I would consider lies. We saved the world from the Spanish flu. It's the greatest. It's a lie. That's all. There's nothing. We're not the same as the media, and we don't have the same agenda or energy. I think it's totally, I think MAGA's getting more and more comfortable with asking questions. At a certain point, it's just going to become obvious. So, someone said Dr. Oz is a Muslim. Honestly, I wish he were a devout Muslim. I'm sure I know he's Turkish, but Dr. Oz does not strike me as like the most devout Muslim. He seems like more of a liberal flip-flopper, which is fine, but I'd almost rather him be like a base conservative Muslim. But, he just reminds, I don't think most Muslims would look at his routine and be like, oh yeah, he's really devout. But I'm not the gatekeeper of Islam or anything. I'm just saying that I don't know. He seems more like a left-wing version of one, but I don't know. What do I know? Someone said Ron DeSantis or Ron Johnson. I'm not really too familiar with Ron Johnson. I've seen some of the bills he's passed, and it looks honorable, but I don't know too much about him. Right now, DeSantis is definitely executing for Florida, and he's showing leadership, but we'll see. I don't think that highly of my opinions, especially when it comes to the 2024 election, because anything I say now pretty much doesn't matter, because what if Trump doesn't run? Then none of what I said matters. What if DeSantis and Trump run against each other? Personally, I think this. I think Trump will beat pretty much any politician on the right. Maybe Rand Paul could sneak past him, but that's a long shot. I think if Ron DeSantis, this probably won't happen, but this is just my opinion. If Ron DeSantis wanted to challenge Trump and he wanted to go against Trump, I think Ron DeSantis would beat him. That's me personally. I think Ron DeSantis would actually crush him because Trump is a smart guy, funny, but he's got some pretty big blind spots and nobody wants to challenge him. And when he's challenged, he just keeps digging himself in a hole. So I think Ron DeSantis is savvy enough to just absolutely destroy Trump if he wanted to. But the chances are they won't run against each other, and maybe you have a situation where it's like Trump versus Ted Cruz versus Rand Paul. I would say, Trump's the favorite. But I do think DeSantis, if he really wanted to run against Trump, which he probably doesn't, I think he would beat him outright, because I think the base is kind of split on them. And I think DeSantis right now, at least over the last year, DeSantis is being more authentic. And that's why Trump won. I mean, if you watch old Trump clips, he was more authentic. You watch old Obama clips. I'm not saying Obama is that authentic, but he's more authentic than like Mitt Romney. So Obama won because he was more likable, charismatic, honest. He's not the most honest, but he was more than McCain, So then Trump comes along. Trump won because he was so authentic, right? I mean, when he was talking, it didn't sound like he was talking to politicians. He just sounded like your uncle that just doesn't give a shit, and it was epic. But he doesn't sound like that anymore. Trump is like a different person now. He sounds like a sleazy car salesman who it just got too comfortable. So I think DeSantis has taken on this, I'm going to just be a little more authentic. And I think authenticity wins. At the end of the day, if they were to challenge each other, I see that winning. But you also need to have presence, because you could be authentic like Ron Paul, but if the media blacks you out, you got to figure out how to get known. Ron and Rand Paul kind of struggle with that. They're very authentic, but they don't have that presence, right? It's like a music show. I'm a hip hop artist. I do shows. You got to have stage presence, right? It's part of it. It's not just having good lyrics and good music. You got to know how to work a crowd. Hey, shout out, Arizona, how we do? That makes people remember the show and get involved. It's the same thing with politics. You could be great. You could be a good speaker, but if you're Rand Paul, you get run off the stage by Trump. Rand Paul probably has better ethics than Trump, but doesn't matter. Trump made him look like a little baby the first time around, and Rand Paul was never able to recover. This time around, I think Rand Paul would do better, but just something to think about. It's difficult to be in these like 6-7 people debates. You got to have stage presence, and Trump is a master speaker. He's really good. I mean, as somebody that does shows and stuff, Trump is good with his eye contact. He's good with his finger. He's got moves. He's a great public speaker. Definitely high level and knows how to command attention and take it. I don't care. It worked really well. It worked really well in the Republican primaries, but to be fair, it didn't work well versus him and Biden, because it kind of made Trump look like a dick a little bit. The first debate, I remember he kept interrupting, and it was unnecessary. Just let Biden talk. But it's actually smarter to let Joe Biden talk, because the longer he talks, he messes up all the time. But Trump kept interrupting Biden, and it made him look sympathetic. I know even Republicans that I follow that are like, damn. So I think that bully pulpit style of debate works really well when you have like 8 people on a stage, because it's too many. You're not getting time and attention unless you say something funny. But in the one-on-one debates, I think it wasn't as effective. But that's just my analysis on debating. Let me see. Someone said Brandon is not a very good public speaker. Well, he's just, he never was, but I think Biden's just, he stumbles too much. I think he's like, he's not a good speaker. He's pretty old. And even when he was young, I think he was kind of a dick. I don't think Biden was ever like an honorable person. You watch his old speeches, he was actually worse. Not because he stumbled as much, but his energy is just so toxic. Like when he was yelling at Clarence Thomas, it didn't sound like when Rand Paul goes at Fauci. Like Rand Paul has this presence. He's like, I'm calling you out, Fauci. Joe Biden was always kind of a scumbag. Like you watch his old debates, he was less likable when he was younger. He stumbled less, but he just came off like such a jerk. Not a fan, clearly. Let's see. A few more comments and then we'll roll out. Does Thomas Massie have a chance? He's pretty young, so I don't think he does right now, but eventually. Candace Owens says she would choose him as a vice president, so I think Candace Owens has a real shot if she ever wants to run to win. People could think what they want, but she's got that type of star power, and she could talk for sure. So I think that's pretty cool that Candace says she would take Thomas Massie. If Candace runs and puts him as the vice president, for sure he has a shot. It's pretty interesting that she wants to take him. I think that says a lot about Candace in a good way. Thomas Massie is one of the best people in Congress. So the fact that Candace identifies that and wants him as her vice president, it's pretty good, in my opinion. Someone said, do I support Musk's transhumanism? I appreciate you bringing this up because a lot of people misconstrue if I laugh at an Elon Musk joke or I agree with him. I don't. Long story short, no, I don't support transhumanism. But Elon Musk today said he would bring Trump back onto Twitter. I support that decision, even though, Trump will probably just sell more Moderna shots. Trump deserves a Twitter. He deserves a platform. The fact that they kicked off the president or ex-president on Twitter is evil. And it's also like, manipulating elections and stuff. I mean, social engineering. So I agree with Elon Musk that Trump should get onto Twitter. And this is something that's really been, I wouldn't say fully bothering me because I got over it, but people keep accusing me of agreeing with everything that Elon Musk does, right? If I compliment his one decision and say, I like what he wants to do with Twitter, people will say, oh, that means you support transhumanism. So of course I don't. I think that, the progression of computers and humans, it's already starting. Transhumanism is already starting. We're in virtual reality right now. So, I think it's up to us, not really Elon, to be cautious with where we go with it. He has a huge role in it, but we also have to be self-aware because it's going in that direction, whether people like it or not. So I think less complaining about Elon, more self-accountability, self-awareness. I know people that got super upset at me. It's like, listen, you should figure out how to live sustainably on a farm. And I'm not saying that in a rude way, but it's like, if you want to really fight transhumanism, you got to, work the next 5 years to get your life completely off of computers. It's difficult. So no, I don't like that idea. I think that his company could probably help some people if he brings people back from paralysis and Alzheimer's and stuff, if his technology could truly do that. However, the merger of human brains into, plant chips, where that's going. I know where it's going. So it's a very dangerous precedent that is making its way possibly. Maybe they're bluffing, but, it's something to be aware of. But no, I don't want that for myself. But, my life is in my hands. Elon is not going to force one in my head, and he's not going to do it to you. But yeah, I mean, that's just all I want to say. Just because I compliment a few things Elon does, we're not identical. We don't have the same religion. We don't have the same political views on everything. I just am not a huge hater all the time. I like to point out things that I like about Trump and point out things that I like about Elon while still telling people what I think. So as far as Elon, I mean, people think I think more than I do. Like, they're like, you think this, and I'm like, I have no stake in Elon Musk. I have no unwielding faith. He's just a funny guy that has a lot of money who potentially might make Twitter better, but also might not. If he did nothing, I would not even shed a tear. I would be like, I don't have any faith or massive stake in anything Elon Musk does. It is what it is. Let's see. Someone said, market crash continues, unemployment claims, tech displacement, known hazard, the rest of it. Yeah, I'm not a big market expert, but I'm observing the stocks and crypto going down. Crypto's going down because stocks are going down. So it's not like crypto's failing. And I'm not PR teaming for crypto, but people that are like, crypto's down, stocks are down. When the stocks are down, the crypto goes down. When the crypto goes up, stocks go up. So everything's crashing right now. Hopefully it looks like it's going to turn back around. So hopefully it goes back up. But yeah, we're being screwed. Anybody that's holding any sort of crypto or stocks is losing value now, but it always goes back up. And I pray that happens again. I'm not panic selling anything. I'm holding, and eventually I think things will go back up. But they did a lot of damage through the pandemic. And this Russia war almost seems like a cover for it. I'm not saying it's a cover, but it's Putin. Oh yeah, Trump printing money didn't do anything. Congress printing money, Biden printing money. None of those tens of trillions of dollars that every party printed. No. Congress had nothing to do with it. No, it wasn't the pandemic, the stopping supply chains for a year. It wasn't closing down businesses. Oh, that had 0% to do with it. It was all Putin. That's a lie. And the war had something to do with it, but not 100%. It's the perfect cover. And also they're trying to erase Russia from reality. It's really creepy. I don't want to use the G word because I think the word genocide is overused. And I know Ukrainians are using it and Russians are using it. Everybody's using that word. But in general, it's like, I see sports are not allowing Russian fighters. They acted like Bivol beat Canelo, the Mexican fighter. They said he was from California. They didn't even let him fly his Russian flag, so they're acting as if it doesn't exist. They're taking him out of sports. They can't play tennis. They can't have a flag. They can't do Olympics. They took their name out years ago. They've been trying to erase Russia as a nation for years. Watch the last Olympics before the war started. They completely removed Russia's flag and name. They've been culturally removing them from the West for years now. And I would say scapegoating them for things that they weren't doing. They are doing some things, but so this idea that this is just some spontaneous thing that just happened in February of this year, is clearly not true. I'm not saying they're the good guys. I'm not saying it's going well. I don't know who's winning. I would say believing Ukraine would be like believing CNN. The Ukraine's government is like if CNN ran a country. So unfortunately, they lie too much. So I don't believe anything they say. They've already lied on 4 or 5 narratives that have been debunked. But as long as you get the money and power out of it, and then whatever, people forget about it. And you're not really allowed to question it. In America, they've banned all Russian news. And if you question, Ukraine, they'll consider you a Russian and they'll try to treat you like a foreign agent or lie about you or smear you or take away, same thing they did with COVID. So it's a fascinating / terrible war. But, I just noticed that the West and America is trying to literally erase Russia from everything. Sports, industry. I mean, every citizen, it's their fault. Are we going to do that to China? Every citizen? Of course not. Are we going to do that to Israel or Palestine or Europe? I mean, that's what we're doing now. Every African country that we disagree with, Venezuela, are we going to blame every citizen from there, remove their flag, destroy their life, not allow them to participate? This is disgusting that they're doing this. And, if they can do it to that country, what's going to stop them from doing it to America? I already see the trend. Oh, we're going to get rid of Russia's flag. Oh, the UFC got rid of all flags. Now Colby Covington can't fly an American flag. McGregor can't fly an Ireland flag. All that's to fight China and Russia. Oh, the only way we could fight Hong Kong and Russia is to remove American flags. Now you can't fly an American flag in the UFC. Why? This is not old. This is new. This is why the left always wins. They get controlled out people at Fox News. They scare people like Dana. I'm not saying he's controlled, but when you do business in Abu Dhabi and all over the world, you're playing a different game than me. I don't do business in the world. In fact, I'm probably, if I were to try to do business, I'm probably banned from multiple parts of the world for any other reason besides I don't cave on what I believe. So I don't even try to do business in other parts of the world. But if you're Dana White, you're not playing the same game I'm playing. He's playing a bigger game and I respect him. But that's what they're doing. They're culturally removing countries from existence, which sounds pretty G-word to me, but what do I know? All right, one more and we'll roll out. Appreciate y'all. Just letting y'all know I have pink hats, baby blue hats. We have white hats. We have freedom over tyranny shirts. We have long sleeves. This is the most stocked I've ever been. Sweatshirts have almost sold out unless you're triple XL. We do have a few of those left, but everything else is pretty much sold out. But we do have all sorts of long sleeves and shirts. So some people say I don't wear hats. No worries. GodBlessHats.com or Dream Rare. That is available. All right, I'll read one more before I leave. I'm going to put on, let me see. I guess I'm not. That's the only thing I have. Let's see. Someone said crypto's down way more than stocks. Debatable, though. I mean, I've been watching both markets. I would say maybe this will be the last thing we'll talk about. Crypto was holding better than a lot of stocks over the last couple months. So even if it's down more in the last couple of days, over the last 2 months, I don't know if it's really down more than some stocks. I would say I don't know that that's true. But I've been watching both because for a while, the stocks were down like 30%. Bitcoin was down like 10%. So even if it fell more in the last week, does it equal? I don't know. But I'm not really a financial expert. You could check on your own. Appreciate you, and thank you. Someone said I'm going to wear, let me see, love you, Anomaly. I'm going to wear a shirt proudly. God bless you all, and God bless America. Thank you, Sylvia. Nice little Jen Psaki emoji. Have a beautiful day, guys, and I will be back soon. Facebook, I got y'all later, 5 p.m. We will do the private stream on Facebook, and I'll be giving away some hats. Thank y'all. Have a beautiful day, and check out Dream Rare Podcast on any podcast apps. watch the interview with G. Edward Griffin. If not for anything else, listen to him. This guy is super smart. He's been on Earth for 90 years, and he knows a lot more than I do. So he's great to talk to. Appreciate you.